Well, today we want to talk about Elisabeth's diagnosis. We've got a lot of questions about what it is and what it means. So she has been diagnosed with something called Bryant-Li-Bhoj Neurodevelopmental syndrome. It's a mouthful, but we'll tell you what it is and how it applies to Elisabeth. This is a pretty new syndrome that was just established as a syndrome just in 2022. And we're still kind of figuring it out along with the doctors. We've actually spoken with one of the doctors, Elisabeth Bhoj. And this syndrome is so new that Bryant-Li-Bhoj, those are three doctors who named it. Bryant and Lee and Bhoj. That's how I got its name. One thing I want to mention is that this is really rare. We actually don't know how many people in the world have it. I think that it must be somewhere under 200 or something like that. We know that there's a Facebook group and it only has 172 members. So very few people in the world have this.
So the presentation of this neurological syndrome varies a lot. And what I've noticed when I've gone into the Facebook group is that that actually is the case. And I would say Elisabeth is probably more on the non-severe end. And I would probably relate it to autism in the fact that it is on a spectrum of sorts. At least that's what it seems to be. That there are kids way on this end that aren't able to stand, they're in wheelchairs, they have facial deformities, and then there are others that don't seem to be as affected as severely.
So there's a lot of symptoms in this. One of the common denominators that connects all the people who have this is the genetic variable. Because from what I understand, that there is a certain gene that is affected by this. And it's not through the parents. It's a mutation on a gene. And that happens to all the people who have this.
So it's called de novo, which means a new gene, so something that's developed in utero. This particular one happens on histone H3, which maybe that doesn't necessarily mean a ton to me at the moment because I'm still learning a lot about genetics. Emailed Elisabeth Bhoj and was able to talk with her, and I really appreciated her responding to me and emailing me, and was trying to understand what exactly this was. And so every time a child is created, we all have different variations, genetic mutations technically. Most of the time, those mutations happen on genes that don't necessarily heavily affect you and your development after you're born. But in the case of this neurodevelopmental syndrome, it does happen on a very important gene, and therefore it affects you more severely and inhibits your development and your muscle tone and things like that.
Yeah, let's go over the symptoms now. And we'll talk about the ones that Elisabeth does have, doesn't have. So first is mild to profound developmental delay or intellectual disability, most commonly in the severe range. Yes, Elisabeth has that.
She has both of those.
She is progressing, but she's definitely far behind what most girls her age would be at.
Right. Elisabeth's understanding is high, so that's called receptive language, what you understand language-wise. So I could speak with her, I can reason with her, and she understands me. So her receptive language is high. So my gut feeling on that is that if we break through the communication barrier, whether that's through sign language, or eventually written or typed language, or a communication device, and we can improve her expressive language, which is essentially what she can express, her own mind and her own thoughts, then we can have a dialogue. And once we have a dialogue, then her world could really open up. And I mean, at that point, we could then determine more accurately if she has a cognitive neurological delay or if she doesn't. But right now, it seems as if intellectually, if she could have expressive language, that she could understand a lot more. And so I'm actually really excited to crack that open and to see what's going on inside of her mind and what she's thinking, and see where we can go with that. And so I do feel happy about that prospect for her.
one of the ways you're doing that is through the communication device with the iPad.
Yeah.
It's helping her to communicate things that are a little more abstract.
Yes.
Because she only communicates about concrete things. So that could help her. Because, like, she can answer what, where, and who, but why is, like, that eludes her. So being able to help her to answer why questions would be a big step developmentally.
Well, and I think that I think it's hard to determine if she doesn't understand it, because it could just be that the medium to be able to express it is absent, that she doesn't have a way to express why.
Moving on with the symptoms. Hypotonia. Hypotonia is a muscle looseness.
Low muscle tone.
Yeah, low muscle tone. On here as well is also hypertonia, which is where it's like a muscle tightness. Mm-hmm. And Elisabeth definitely has this. We noticed it before she was even 1 year old. When she was like 9 months old, she could, like, I could put her on her belly on the arm of a couch, and she would just do a plank. She'd just be like flat with her feet and her head up and just go boom.
We had no idea that what was going on at the time.
We knew it was abnormal.
We were amazed that she could do it.
You're like, check out that torso.
I know.
It's a sign of hypertonia.
Yeah, that it's very, very. So I think those back muscles were very rigid. Mm-hmm. As she's developed, her core muscles have more are less strong, and her extremities, her arms and her legs, tend to be more rigid.
Her swallowing is really
was really loose.
So swallowing was a really challenge for her. And later we're going to make a video about her whole story growing up through all this. But this time we're just going to talk about the diagnosis itself. But yes, she definitely has hypotonia. And I guess the way that she has dealt with that has just been a lot of physical therapy.
Yeah, and there has been changes from the physical therapy. So we have noticed that being in this physical therapy does actually affect her muscle tone.
Yeah.
All right, so microcephaly, cephaly referring to the brain, micro referring to small. You can also have macro. But Elisabeth was diagnosed with microcephaly, which is a condition in which a baby's head is significantly smaller than expected, often due to abnormal brain development. And this is something that Elisabeth struggled with early on in her development.
Yeah, she struggled to get enough nutrition to even grow. She was underweight for a lot of her younger years. It's pretty great that she's not anymore. And so it's been really good to see her growing and putting on weight, because that was a hard thing for her a long time ago. Craniosynostosis of any suture or abnormal head shape, excluding positional plagiocephaly.
Mm-hmm. And this one does not seem to affect Elisabeth as much. Like when you look at her face, it does look fairly like normal.
Yeah, and as you can see, here's some images of people who have this syndrome, and you can see there's a wide range of different shapes of faces.
Such a wide range, yeah.
And Elisabeth, well, you can notice that maybe there's some differences, but it's hard to put your thumb on. She really, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, her face is really cute.
Yeah.
I like her face. I think it's really cute.
I think a lot of the faces on there are cute too.
They are. They're so cute.
Yes, but I don't notice any different shape. Like, she does have a bit of a deformed mouth. Like her jaw is inside and her teeth are out. She has one tooth that's like behind the other row of her teeth.
Yeah, but I mean that happens with a lot of kids. I don't think that's unique.
You don't think so?
To this. No, I don't think that's unique.
But some of that affects her speech.
It could. And so she does have a narrow palate. She did have tongue ties, which we loosened.
Poor growth with short stature. Yes.
Yeah.
She did struggle with that. Not as much.
Not as much now. I would say that she's not significantly smaller than other people her age.
Yeah, and you're pretty tall for a mom, and so she's decently tall
for a mom.
Yeah, moms typically
are not this
You're pretty tall for a woman.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say.
If I was not a mom, I would probably be an average height.
Yeah. Moms are that tall. Women maybe, but moms. No. All right. Now this is a big one. Epilepsy. including generalized myoclonic and tonic seizures and complex partial seizures and tonic-clonic seizures. So seizures, Elisabeth does not have that.
And we've been, I mean, if there have been any, and we've been trying to see and track them.
You can know if she has a seizure if she is unresponsive.
Right, and she's always been responsive. I mean, there are some times when she would zone out, and I know that sometimes people have said that can be a sign of a seizure. Mm-hmm. So it is possible that she probably could have had a seizure like that, just like a zone out one, but it's been so hard to catch. We've been trying to watch and trying to track it, but there's not been anything that we can tell that has been
anytime I thought she had a seizure, I just would say, hey,
Elisabeth.
And she snapped right out of it.
Yeah, so as far as we can tell.
But apparently this is a pretty common symptom.
Seizures.
For a lot of kids
for the
that
neurological. But then again, that might go along with a lot of, because she seems to neurologically so far have some pretty good development, all things considered. And so maybe the absence of seizures is why that is.
Yeah. Progressive neurological features, particularly loss of developmental milestones, worsening seizures, worsening gait in adulthood. Again, not seizures, but developmental milestones, like talking, for example, walking. She did eventually walk, which was such a big deal, but it was always far behind what most kids her age would be at. Mm-hmm. And her gait, I mean, she just got surgery a little while ago because her gait is struggling. She does have a foot that's turned in quite a bit, so that's why we're doing the braces, and she currently has orthotics. Mm-hmm. It's all to help with, helping her gait to be better.
Yeah, and I have noticed that chiropractics has seemed to help a lot with this. That I can tell when we go in and she gets adjusted, we come back out, her hips are opened up, and we're going to be starting kind of a stretching regimen for her hips to see, because it seems that is helping a lot. And so the diagnosis is new enough that there's really here's what you should do about it. There's no prescribed way to assist or help. As far as I know, if you happen to be a parent of a child that has this syndrome, if you've gotten a prescription of some kind, or let us know in the comments, because as far as I know, we haven't really been told what to do. We just know what it is.
Well, other than therapies.
Right, other than traditional therapies. And we
Physical,
have noticed
occupational.
And we have noticed that those things are helping, but chiropractics does seem to be helping her gait in conjunction with physical therapy, and we want to try also massage therapy to see if that can add to it.
Elisabeth is so determined. She wants to move. She loves to move. She loves to dance.
Yeah.
and so she doesn't let this hold her back. She's like, oh, we're going to dance? I'm going to move. And she's got this cute dance, and she wants to spin circles. There's things she does. I'm just like, I don't think she can do that, but she does.
Yeah.
If you've seen Finding Nemo, that happens all the time. The idea of you can't do these things. And it's like, oh yeah, I can.
Yeah, she can. She has to work harder at it, but she does. And so
yeah, it's really impressive. And I guess going with this, I was just thinking jumping. Jumping is a milestone that I think she's close to. She's never really jumped. She can be on the trampoline and she kind of gets up, but she doesn't jump off the ground.
Yeah, getting her own feet up off the ground. Yeah, it's coming.
Now that she's out of braces, that might be something she might try it again.
Yeah, we'd have to get that movement in the feet, which she could do. I think we still...
Jumping's hard.
Yeah, you never realize how blessed you are to just be able to jump. It's
or swallowing.
There's tons of mechanics to it. Tons of mechanics to just jump, to swallow.
When Elisabeth struggled to swallow, that was such a confusing thing as parents. It's how do you teach your kid to swallow?
Yeah, we're just
never thought I'd have to teach my kid how to swallow.
Yeah.
That was tricky.
Yeah.
We'll explain more about that in another video. All right, what's next? Camptocormia. Forward flexion of the spine when standing that resolves when lying down, or bent spine, developing in adulthood.
So this. So I think this is interesting that they must know some people in adulthood. They must know of some people that have grown to adulthood. Otherwise, they wouldn't know some of these things. Mm-hmm. So we don't know if they apply to Elisabeth.
Yeah, well, she doesn't seem to have that yet.
Yeah.
So that's good so far. ophthalmologic. Yeah, ophthalmologic involvement, particularly strabismus and nystagmus.
Do you even know what that means?
Yes. I have no idea.
I'm gonna look it up. This is part of the journey of being a parent of a child that has medical needs. It's like, you didn't go to school for all of these medical things. So you read these papers and you're like, what does that mean? Every 10th word, it's like, what does that even mean? I have to look that up.
Yeah.
So it's...
Well, I mean, like, we both got bachelor's degrees in science. Like, you did it in psychology and I did it in nutritional science. And so, we know how to look up papers and read scientific journals. But, I mean, I didn't know what...
I don't just know it all.
Catechormia is.
Camp.
Oculomotor abnormalities. Yep. Elisabeth fits in that.
Impaired vision.
Oh, yeah. Well, she...
Yeah, visual impairment. She's got glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And we do notice, like, you'll notice when you have your little babies, if you're having a fun time, you'll spin them and spin them and spin them, and then you stop spinning them and their eyes kind of keep going.
But they should grow out of that.
They should.
At like 18 months or 2 years. Mm-hmm. It took her up to like 4 or 5.
Well, and she's still. If you
spin her around.
If you spin her around enough, her eyes will still. And so there are some of those developments that are still influencing her.
Non-specific dysmorphic features. I think we already talked about that, like with the facial stuff. Minor congenital heart defects, most commonly atrial septal defect.
Yes. So Elisabeth was initially diagnosed with something called Nemelin myopathy at a children's hospital when we lived in Missouri. And when we moved here, we had her meet with a Nemelin myopathy specialist of sorts. He had many, many clients that had this, and he took one look at Elisabeth and was like, that's not what she has. And so, when people that have Nemelin myopathy also often have heart issues. And so when we were in Missouri in the children's hospital, we did go and get her heart tested and got it looked at. And she doesn't have any heart defects or murmurs or any septal defects. So
this next one seems like it only applies to males, like retractile testes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
we don't have that problem.
Don't have that problem. So it's like almost half. Well, some of these she like definitely has, and other ones not as much, which we're grateful for.
So I want to get another MRI. And right now, her neurologist doesn't think that we need one. But when we got an MRI for Elisabeth, when we were in Missouri, her frontal lobe, everything here, the front part of her brain, it did not fill up her skull, and there were large gaps in between all of the brain folds. They said that was due to a lack of nutrition. Like at the time is what they said that was from. And so I am really curious now to look at her brain again and see if it looks normal or does it look abnormal. It's interesting because what it seems to be with this particular diagnosis is that it is neurological. It is how the brain is firing and how it is communicating to the muscles, how it's communicating to the rest of the body, as far as I understand. And so what the doctors are trying to do right now with Elisabeth is retrain her feet to have a better stance and a better gait by controlling how her feet are on the ground with these braces and with these orthotics, hoping that we can train the brain from the outside, the bottom up, essentially. Because you can do that. You can train the brain from the top down or the bottom up. And so we're going from the bottom up, from the body to the brain, that eventually, hopefully, the brain will communicate to the body for the feet to level out. We don't know if this will work. We don't know if it will be long lasting or anything like that. So, but we have seen differences and we have seen improvements. And so that's hopeful.
Yeah. I guess, someone could wonder, if we have 2 kids with special needs, like what's up with our genes? And apparently this isn't something to do with our genes. What happened to Elisabeth or Jacob. So
some people say...
Well, autism. We'll get another video about autism. They identified, I think it was 57 people who had this.
back in
This is 2022.
2022.
This table is interesting because it shows like the percentage of who had which symptom. And so you can see like developmental delay, 100%.
100%.
Yeah, which is accurate. Elizabeth has some facial features, but
Like
not
down
as
here,
much.
yeah. So it's like 88%. Hypotonia, 72% of the people.
Elizabeth fits in that. Seizures, less than 50%, and she's in that. she
Short
doesn't have
stature is about 39%.
it. Microcephaly.
Is 33%.
Yep.
Abnormal head shapes around 32%.
Heart defects,
19%.
very rare. Spasticity, commonly in the legs. Well, spasticity is where like it's like constantly shaking, kind of a thing. She doesn't have that.
Oh, look at that. All reported adults is 3 out of the, is it 46 in this study?
57.
57 people with this neurodevelopmental syndrome, and only 3 of them
Are adults.
are adults. Okay.
Yeah.
And 100% of them had the motor issues in adulthood.
There's still a lot more research for them to do on this. Like we like when we spoke with Elisabeth Bhoj, the doctor who was putting this all together, discovering the syndrome, she's got more testing to do.
Yeah, and they are testing us. Like those of us that are in the Facebook group are the ones that are being invited to be involved in these tests.
And, you know, one of the big things that we wanted to do is raise awareness of this syndrome too, especially for those very few people out there who have it, like us. Like, I got on YouTube and I looked up Bryant-Li-Bhoj Neurodevelopmental Syndrome, and only our video showed up. Like, there's no video on YouTube that describes this.
Yeah.
So this might be the only one for a while. You can go on Google and you can find some stuff, but on YouTube, we're the only ones.
Yeah.
So we want to raise awareness and also camaraderie with those who have it.
Yeah, and share what is working. Just because it's working for us doesn't mean it will work for you, but it is an option and an avenue to try as well.
Yeah. Oh, here's an interesting one. Infant feeding difficulties.
25%.
Yeah, most are treated with a nasogastric tube or a NG tube or a G tube.
Yes.
Elizabeth had both of those.
She had both of those.
Yeah, so she had tubes to be able to feed her. But she doesn't anymore, which is amazing. And we'll tell you the story of how she grew out of those, which...
It was a miracle.
Yeah, it was a real miracle.
It felt like a miracle.
Yes. Now I know a little bit more about Elisabeth's diagnosis and the challenges that she has and the growth that she has had, the special steps she's made in spite of those challenges, which is the whole purpose of this channel, is to show that we can make special steps through hard things, not just our kids, but us and you as well. So in the comments below, let us know what special steps you are making or have made recently. We like to hear them.
Yeah, and just know that if you're one of the few numbers out there, if you have a child that has this syndrome, that I feel like there is hope, that they can still have a really great quality of life, that you can have a great quality of life, and there's still a lot to look forward to, even though your life is going to look very different and very unique from everybody else. And there's honestly nothing wrong with that. I know that it can feel lonely, but there's still a lot of comfort in what you do and just being with each other and knowing that there are other families like this, like you guys or like us out there. So feel free to reach out through the comments and we can just connect. But there's still a lot to look forward to.
And with that said, keep on making special steps.